talked about the battles of Ortona. And now I would like to carry on from Ortona. And if you could just remember time once the Battle of Ortona had finished.
Well, once when Ortona was taken on December the 28th, 1943, another regiment came through our lines, and they took over Ortona, and we stayed in Ortona, but we were not in battle formation. We were in the rest area then, and we were there for maybe a couple of weeks, and then we moved to north of Ortona, and we were in some more rest area then, and from there on we just carried on up the coast of Ortona to different towns, Teleske, Rimini, and I don't recollect the names of the other towns, but this is what happened after the Battle of Ortona.
So after Ortona, then you were involved in patrols of the area, and do you know how long were you there before you left for the Liri Valley?
Oh, I don't remember.
I guess it was months, hey?
It was months, yeah. It was 3, but it would be at least 2 or 3 months.
Do you remember it being stressful during the patrols, or was it a bit of a relief?
No, it was different battles along the canals. There was a lot of canals and dikes up in that part of the country there, and there was fight. We lost quite a few people in those because they flooded the area. And then it was all marsh after that. Tanks couldn't operate because it was all muddy. And it was mostly infantry moving on until, and the tanks or heavy equipment couldn't come up because of them flooding opening up the canal. And this carried on and held us up for a long time, but no, I don't recall anything too much after that, till up to the Liri Valley.
So when you first arrived in the Liri Valley, do you remember where you were stationed?
No, I would have to check the maps.
It wasn't in the front lines right away. You were in
and out. No, it was in and out. We'd be in there maybe for a couple, 3 weeks, and then out again for a couple of weeks, and yeah, it was in and out of the battle, the lines.
So this would have been then during the battle for Casino, when they were attempting to cross the Gustav line. Do you remember that? I'm imagining that you were behind the Gustav line.
It was quite a while after. I mean, the Hitler line came first, and that was in May.
So the Gustav line, I'll just refresh your memory, because that was at the south end of Casino, and that was more of a British action. There were Canadians there, but they crossed the Gustav line on May the 11th. And then, so I'm wondering, were you aware of that action taking place?
Yeah, I guess I got my lines mixed up.
Yeah, Gothic line, I think you're thinking of, came later in September.
Okay. Oh,
yeah, but so the Gustav line was not something you were involved in directly, but I was wondering if you were aware of it taking place around you, that battle.
At the time, no, I probably at the time, but now I don't remember.
Right. And did you understand what your role would be when you were sent in to attack at the Hitler line?
Well, essentially, it was the same as always. I mean, we had an objective to take, and each unit and each had their job to do. But the only thing was they didn't count on the heavy fortifications of the Hitler line. I mean, they were well established. They had fortifications there. Their gun emplacements were in concrete, and they were well fortified, and which our intelligence didn't catch it all, and we were in for a bigger battle than what we expected, and the casualties for one day's battle they were terrific.
Do you remember how you felt just prior to the attack?
The Hitler line?
Hitler line.
It was we had an idea it was going to be tough, and we were apprehensive. I mean, it was just that feeling that
The night before, I can
night
just
before.
imagine the night before in
it
the
was the night
trench
before,
waiting.
and then you're waiting, and then the next morning, about say I think it was around 4, I think it was 5 o'clock, when about 600 guns opened up all at once, and the noise was just terrific. You couldn't hear you could hardly hear your buddy right next to you talking, because all them guns opening up at once, and I don't know how long the firing lasted, but half an hour or more, and then the troops went in. Well, I mean, they tried to go in under a barrage, like a creeping barrage, where the artillery would be firing, and then they'd raise it and then go another maybe 200 yards, and then the troops were trying to follow the barrage, but the tanks went in, and they were just slaughtered. It was just
The artillery and the tanks? I mean, sorry, the infantry and the tanks?
Oh, and infantry and the tanks, especially the tanks. I mean, they were just knocking them off one after another. They just didn't stand a chance.
Because of the way the defenses were put in
The way the
place.
defenses. I mean, they were built. The gun emplacements were in behind concrete, and in under I mean, you know, below the ground. Tanks never couldn't knock them out because they couldn't see them, and they were so well camouflaged, and they had lots of them too. You know, heavy anti-tank guns dug in. And,
What was your personal experience that day?
frightening. I actually that day I think the bullets came so close you could feel the wind, the whisper. Bullets, when they go past your ears, they whisper. And I could feel the wind from the.
And do you remember being aware of your buddies around you?
There was so much going on. Yeah, you were aware of them, but you were looking out after yourself. It was just.
You didn't have time to stop for anybody else. Did you see others going down?
Yeah.
You saw others going down around you?
Oh yes, yeah. You saw it was just left and right. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Was there ever a time when you were worried you weren't going to make it?
Oh yeah. There was times.
How did the regiment fare that day?
Terrible. We had so many casualties, it was unbelievable.
Were you involved in helping clear out the casualties after the battle?
Helping bury them, yeah.
You did have to help with the cleanup after.
Yeah.
Was that the next day?
The very next day, 24th of May.
So what did it look like that day? Was I guess all the anyone who was still standing was
helping? The people that were wounded, they were evacuated. I mean, we got them back to where they could be taken care of, and the ones that didn't make it, well, we had to bury them. And the padre was very busy that day, collecting dog tags and the personal belongings off of the soldiers that were killed. And they had a lot of them carried. I mean, they had wallets, pictures of their girlfriends or wives or families, and you had to be very careful too. I mean, the padre had to make sure it was that he was sending the right letters to the right people. I mean, you didn't want to send a letter to a married man's girlfriend, because there was
It's not a good legacy.
There was a lot of married men that went overseas. They had wives at home, or they had wives back in Canada, and they had a part-time wife in England. So it's you could get letters mixed up pretty easy. And then there was, of course, you couldn't do very much of it if he was a casualty, if he was killed. But I mean, says if he wasn't, he'd get killed later on anyway, if he got home. That was it. I mean, says you got to take the personal belongings off of the dead, and make sure that you had the right personal belongings. Go with the right dog tags.
And so you had to help in all of this, or you were just digging ditches or digging graves?
No, you're doing both. Doing both.
Must have been terribly hard because some of these guys must have been your friends.
Oh yeah, lots of them are friends. Yeah, and they. Oh sure.
I can't imagine what that would have felt like.
Yeah, well, you kind of toughen into it, you know. You know, you feel bad sometimes. It maybe takes a couple of days after the battle that you realize, gosh, Joe isn't here anymore. But like this one fellow I used to go and leave with quite a bit, and we both had girlfriends in Scotland, and you know, and he says, gosh, I won't be going on leave with Joe anymore because he's dead now. Yeah.
Did it feel like it was worse than Ortona?
That day was worse for me. The day, because Ortona was bad, but and Ortona lasted for a whole week, whereas Hitler line, it was just one day, but it was just one big din. I mean, in Ortona, I mean, you had your battles maybe last for an hour or two, then you'd back off, or they'd back off, and you'd get a little bit of rest. But in the Hitler line, it was right from morning till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening. That evening, well, it was getting dark, and you couldn't fight no more. And where we had broken through the lines, and because they had concertina wire, you know, the barbed wire all along, and we had routed them, and they were gone. I mean, see, we had broken through the Hitler line, so then once we had broken through, then another regiment came up behind us and took over, because there wasn't enough left of the Seaforths took a worse beating than we did that day, and we took a bad enough one. So yeah, that was.
Were you allowed to have a period of rest after that?
After we had a couple. I just don't know how long, but we had a few days rest after the Hitler line. I'm
sure morale was pretty low after that.
Yeah, it was. It's slow until you get rejuvenated after a while again. I mean, you know, we get new reinforcements and.
When did you next see action after that?
I don't recall.
Do you remember the approach to Frosinone?
Frosinone, I do remember Frosinone, but then there were 4 or 5 guys were taken prisoner, if I remember, and
they were ambushed. Do you know where? Was it a sniper or?
You know, I guess well, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, I don't know just how come, but they were taken. The 4 or 5 fellows were taken prisoner, and Sims was killed.
Did you know him personally?
Yeah, he was a very nice officer. He was a very sharp officer, very polite, very courteous, and he was a red-headed fella, and he had a nice trimmed mustache, you know, really trimmed, and he was meticulously dressed all the time, and a real gentleman. He was a real nice guy. I remember him well.
Were you part of the company that went in and cleared the streets after Frosinone was taken?
No.
No, you weren't in Frosinone. So.
Not. I was in Frosinone when after it had been cleared out. I mean, they cleared of the enemy, and when we went in there, in fact, we were in there for a few days.
Did you take prisoners? Were there Germans still around that?
No, not then. Not when I went in.
How were you met by the locals there?
I don't remember any locals. Really.
You didn't interact with the civilians?
Because they don't come out of the woods until everything's nice and quiet, you know what I mean?
Did you remember civilians in other towns as you went through?
Oh yes, some towns were we didn't even fight over. You know what I mean? They evacuated the town before we even got there, and Of course, the civilians, they stayed. I mean, because there was no fighting. They didn't have to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Ortona or some of them towns, they had to, you didn't see any civilians. All you saw was soldiers.
Do you remember heading towards Monte Ridicino?
No.
Don't remember that. Her question is, then you headed toward Monte Ridicino. Fighting at the base of the hill was a convent. Wood and Polinsky fell that day. So is any of this ringing a bell? You know the Polinsky family and have talked to them. Do you remember Alfred Wood? Have you ever met the Wood family? If not, are there any thoughts on Alfred that you care to share with them? So this is her question, and I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Well, the Polinskys, I knew Emil Polinsky. I went to school with him.
Oh, you grew up with him?
We grew up with him. And I knew him, I knew the whole family. We were well.
Well, you weren't with him when he was killed, though.
Not right with him, but I remember when he was killed. Yeah, I was not that far away, you know. I mean, I forget what company he was in. I think he was in A Company, and I was in headquarters. But no, I don't. I mean, I knew him, but I didn't know. I didn't know Woods. I don't remember anybody by the name of Woods. But
do you remember being in a position to enter Rome?
I remember when we were on the outskirts of Rome, yeah.
And you were told to hold back.
To hold back, yes. Yeah.
How did you feel then? When the Canadians were ready to go in and
well, it was,
told to allow the Americans.
Disappointment, but I mean, says, but you can't feel, you know, I mean, it was,
after fighting so hard to liberate Rome and then not being able to go.
And not be able to go there, to give somebody else the honor of, but that's politics, I mean, says, so you can't do much about politics, especially when you're just at the lowest person on the run.
I guess you know your role in the game.
That's,
were you aware when D-Day occurred? Were you aware when the D-Day invasion occurred?
Oh yes, yeah, we were happy about that. I mean, it says we felt relieved almost that they would be taking troops away from. And actually, it did make a difference. I mean, it says we didn't have the opposition. It was more or less sailing right through after that.
They were
Of course,
called,
they were tugged.
they were called the D-Day Dodgers.
I was going to ask about that. Was it pretty clear when you were labeled the D-Day Dodgers? That news must have traveled like wildfire.
Actually, it didn't. That didn't come about until pretty near the end of the war.
Did you resent the inference?
It didn't make any difference.
It didn't bother you?
No.
After leaving the Liri Valley, what are your memories of the approach to the Gothic line?
And I don't have too much recollections about that because I mean we were on the move so much then that
one field was the same as the next.
Yeah, quite a bit, yeah.
Do you remember how the Edmonton Regiment was involved in the breakthrough of the Gothic line?
No, because you only know when you're a soldier, you only know what's going on in your own little front, what's going on in your own battalion, or not even your own battalion. Sometimes you don't even know what's going on with the next company. I mean, you're just involved with your own little section there, and you don't know what's going on.
Do you remember the breakthrough of the Gothic line?
Oh yeah, I remember, and then there was nothing after that. They pulled out, and of course you're not going to chase them. I mean, says like battle lines are pretty well controlled. I mean, says your commanders will say, well, that's it. We stop here, and then they let somebody else that's got fresher troops come through, and then they take over the hunt, you might say.
Do you remember some of the towns that you went through at that time?
No, that's not now. Not anymore. How many years ago is that?
65. I guess that's a few, hey?
I don't even remember what I had for breakfast.
So the Gothic line didn't seem as big a deal to you then once you'd already been through Ortona and the Hitler line.
No, it was every line is tough, really. I mean, there's nothing, and nothing was easy. Only some of them were harder than the others.
Yeah.
You see,
Mentally, was it getting challenging because you'd now been there 18 months practically, and you know, did you think there would ever be an end?
no, it made you wonder.
Yeah.
When is this going to end? When?
Did you ever meet any Italian partisans?
Oh yes, we met them. Oh yeah, yeah. They
Did you work with them?
worked with them too. Yes, yeah. Some of them were good. Some of them weren't. They were. We'd have been better off without them. Really.
So you don't have any distinctive memories about Rimini. What about the Po Valley? Do you have any distinctive memories about
The only
that?
thing I remember about the Po Valley was it was a big valley. There was a lot of poppies, and Rimini. I don't remember too much about Rimini.
Was it memorable your move out of Italy when you went back over? You were sent back over to France, the Leghorn, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Leghorn. Yeah, where
Like-
that from? Yeah.
Yeah, so you remember the move over after
yeah.
after you'd been pulled out of Italy, and then what happened?
Oh, when we got pulled out of Italy, we left Leghorn. We left on what they call LTCs. These were boats or landing craft that we used for the invasion, and so we boarded a whole bunch of landing craft. I guess they had left over from the invasions, and we sailed from Leghorn to the south of France. Landed in Marseille, and of course unloaded, and for miles and miles and miles there was they had caught the Germans. Our air force had caught the Germans leaving. They were leaving Italy too, and we were right on their tails. But they it was miles and miles of convoy, all burnt up. Just miles. I mean, trucks and half-track vehicles, tanks, and everything for miles. Just alongside the main road from Marseille towards Lyons, the center of France. And they just lost thousands of vehicles
Is that right?
and dead people. I mean, there was graves all along the road there.
So you could tell it had been bad.
Oh, that was a real slaughter there. I mean,
And where were you put into action after you got into Northwest Europe?
well, we didn't. The first place, to be honest with you, I think it was. I'm not sure. I think it was Almelo, but I don't recall. And but I do remember crossing the Rhine on a bridge made of boats.
What kind of boats?
Well, these were just boats, ordinary boats, and they had all alongside each other, just like logs. And then they had planks on top of the boats, and as the trucks were going across,
You're kidding.
it was going like this.
Engineering at its best.
Oh, it was scary, all right, because they had all these planks, and they were just you on one batch, and they'd all go down as you were climbing. You were just going up and down like this, going from one batch of boats to the next,
This is across the Rhine.
crossing the Rhine. Yeah.
Isn't that something? Do you remember being involved in the Liberation of Holland?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's the liberation when they just before the liberation of Holland, the truce, you might say. I was in Germany when they declared when the end of the war. But I mean, it was you could see it coming already. I mean, they say it was they were giving up all around. Some places there they were still fighting, and other places they were the Germans were giving themselves up by the hundreds. And but just before the end of the war, the people in Rotterdam and Amsterdam were starving to death, so they called a truce. The Germans they had a 48-hour truce or was it a 24-hour truce? I just don't remember. But anyway, there was a truce, and they loaded all the trucks they could get. They gathered up everybody, every unit gave up all their trucks, and they loaded them up at somewhere in Belgium there, I guess, and brought truckload and truckload and truckload of food into Amsterdam and Rotterdam, because they were starving. They were actually starving to death there. They hadn't had any food for about a week, no food at all, and the babies were dying from malnutrition and no milk or nothing. So anyway, they had the truce. And,
do you remember the drop when the Canadians arranged to drop the parachutes with supplies and food?
Was
it called Operation Manna?
I don't recall that. That.
Maybe that didn't take place in your part of
Probably
the line.
didn't take place in our part, but I do remember because our guys were fighting on the Elbe River, and when they called the truce, the Germans and the Canadian guys from our regiment, they got together there and they were having a party. Yeah, drinking.
Together, the Germans and the Canadians.
Yeah, the Germans came over to the Canadian side and they were drinking and party, eating German sausage and.
How did you feel about partying with all the guys that had been killing you for the last year and a half?
The war was they had a truce, so they.
Isn't war crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, war is crazy. They had this truce. And then they said, I think the truce was going to be finished at 7 o'clock. And they looked at the watch, the truce is going to be finished, we better get back.
Start killing each other again.
Start killing each other again.
Was that the only time that you remember interacting with German soldiers?
They had a truce, another truce one time at a place called, this was in Italy. Well, they had a skirmish there, quite a bit of a battle there, and we had 5 or 6 people wounded, and they had 5 or 6 people wounded, and we took of course, they were taken prisoner, but anyway, they patched them up. The German doctors patched our guys up, and our doctors patched the Germans up, and then they held a truce, and we exchanged prisoners.
Did you shake hands? And
yeah, and then you held a white flag on the end of the rifle, and then they held a truce. And then about 2 or 3 days later, another German soldier comes over with a white flag. He had a few bottles of cognac or whiskey. The German doctor sent over to our doctor, congratulating him for the patch-up job he did on their soldiers. And they exchanged prisoners and.
Had a few glasses of whiskey.
And went back to fighting again.
Isn't that something? So back to the truce in Holland, so that you were partying with the Germans, eating German sausage.
Me. No,
just some of your buddies.
But they were. We heard they were. It was, they were talking about it that after that.
That had happened.
Truce. No, it wasn't me.
Do you remember when the war ended? Where were you when the war ended?
I was in a place called Emmerich in Germany. Because during that part of the time, I wasn't fighting anymore myself. I'd been promoted into the stores there, and I was towards the end of the war. I wasn't a rifleman any longer.
Had you ever been wounded?
I got a little piece of shrapnel in the hip. I still got it there.
Is that right? A souvenir?
Just a mark.
Yeah, but you still limp a little bit too with it.
Yeah, well, it sometimes.
Do you remember the end of the war being jubilant, or was it an anticlimax?
No, it was jubilant. Very jubilant, yeah. Everybody was just a sigh of relief.
Did you stay in Germany for a little while?
Not, I recall, not very long, maybe 2 or 3 days. That's.
And then back to London?
No, back to you. I was on a different. I was on a job at that time towards the end of the war, and no, I just went back to the regiment.
How long did you stay in Europe after the war ended?
Well, not myself, not too long. I come home early. I joined the Pacific Fleet to fight in Japan, and so I came back a little earlier than the rest of them did.
And luckily you didn't have to go.
And well, I didn't have to go, but I was sure pleased I didn't have to go too.
I bet.
Because I had one more week to go on my leave, and then I was supposed to go report to Calgary, and then from Calgary we were going to Louisville, Kentucky to take training. And I had 1 week to go when they dropped the second bomb in Japan, and the war was over. And so after my 1 week was up, at the end of the week I went back to Calgary, and I said, well, the war's over, we're going to give everybody the discharge, or you can stay in the army if you want, or you can get a discharge. And I said, well, I think I'll take my discharge. So they said, well, you got another 30-day leave coming. So I said, okay. So I get my another 30-day leave, and then when that was up, then I went back to Calgary and I got my discharge. But I could have stayed in the army if I wanted to, but I figured, oh, that's enough. So
How did you find reintegrating into civilian life?
Well, it was actually it was mixed feelings. I mean, I kind of wish I had stayed in the army, and then I was glad I was out, because it was no more discipline, no more no more army life, you might say. And
I guess you missed the camaraderie.
yeah, that was one of the things, and then kind of you're at the loose ends when you're finally got your freedom, you might say, But it was good to get out, and yet it's kind of sad to get out.
Were you given a hero's welcome, or did anybody pay any attention?
They didn't pay much attention. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of people who resented the fact that the war was over. I was in a barber shop one day, not long after the war was over. I was still on my 30-day leave. It was my second 30-day leave. When the fella, I was sitting in the barber's chair. The barber was cutting away, and this here fella come in on there, and asked him how he was going. He said, not very good. He said, I lost my job. He was working at Gainer, a packing plant. He said, I lost my job. He said, oh, he said, yeah. He said, these darn soldiers coming back, and they're wanting their jobs back again. He says, I lost my job. He said, I wish, he said, the war would have lasted another 10 years.
He was doing well at home.
Yeah, well, see, he had a job. Otherwise, he lost his job because.
And all the women had to go back into the home.
Yeah, but he, because the veterans come on home, and they get those there that had jobs that wanted to go back to their jobs, and I didn't want to go back to my job. I had a hell of a job before I joined the army, but yeah, they didn't want to. And there was a lot of different times there. Bitter, sweet things happened. One time, I was with a buddy of mine. We went to the Butter Dome. We had our armistice celebration there, and after that, the cenotaph business was over with. My friend and I we stopped at a restaurant to have dinner or have a bite to eat. And him and I were sitting there, and this here, it was a bunch of young university students. Matter of fact, there was 3 boys and there was 2 girls sitting in this booth, and they were joking around and whatnot. And I was sitting there with my buddy there, and I wear quite a few ribbons. Medals.
You were proud of your ribbons. You were wearing your ribbons.
I was wearing my ribbons. Well, I was kind of proud. I was proud of them, all right. But anyway, when this one young fellow, I don't know, it was a girl. One of the guys says, I wonder where he got how many boxes of cornflakes he had to open up to get those ribbons, all those medals. And another one, so maybe it wasn't cornflakes. Maybe it was popcorn. And they were joking. They were having, and this friend of mine says to me, he said, "You going to take that?" I says, "I guess I have to. There's 5 of them. There's only me and you." And he says, "Well," he said, "I'll back you up." I said, "Yeah." I said, "How long?" But anyway, yeah, they made me feel pretty. I was embarrassed. They were making fun. But there was another gentleman there. I don't know. He wasn't a veteran. He wasn't quite old enough to be a veteran, but he was pretty peeved off. And he went to the young students there, and he just laced into them, and he says, "Told them, if it wasn't for these fellas here," he says, you guys would be walking down the street doing the
Goose step.
The goose step.
Goose
He
step,
says,
right.
yeah, he says, if it wasn't for these fellas, he says, you'd be doing the goose step down Jasper Avenue now. He says, you should be kissing their feet, not making fun of their medals. And they felt pretty bad for a minute there. I don't know how they felt, but they felt bad when the old Chinaman says, "Yes," and he comes down and he says, "You get out." He said, "Out," he says, "but before you get out," he says, "you pay your bill." So the Chinaman, he kicked them out there, and they were left kind of sheepishly. They apologized before they left, though.
Oh, they did. Well, good for
Yeah,
them.
they apologized.
I'm
I said,
glad
"Well,"
they did.
and I says, "Just remember." I didn't have too much to say, but then I didn't go on parade there for a couple of years after that.
Or did you wear your medals after that?
Oh, I wear them now.
But did you, in those years following the war, after
No, I
that
didn't.
experience?
No, I didn't. I didn't even go on parade.
Yeah, isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Did you find that ever happen again, or?
No.
I guess the problem is that everybody had to hide away then,
Yeah.
if they weren't well treated.
Well, but no, right after the war, I mean, there was a lot of the veterans even got a bad name. They were supposed to be lazy, and they weren't worth their salt or something like that because they were in the army too long. They had it too easy, and well, there's a lot of different things.
It's not crazy. I guess the problem is that Canada didn't suffer very badly.
Well,
That's right.
no, they didn't. No,
They were having a party at home.
Yeah.
families suffered. I mean, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a lot of people there that had nobody. They had no family in the war or anything like that. Or they didn't lose anybody. Like I had 5 brothers in the army. I mean, 4 brothers myself. There was 5 of us, and we all came back home safe and sound. And so, I mean, even though we had all the boys in the family, we didn't.
That's
we
pretty
didn't
lucky
suffer
odds.
at all. And yet there's some families there, they lost 2 or 3 of the same family. We had in our own regiment, we had 3 brothers. All 3 got killed.
Is that right? Oh,
And then we had another one, a father and 2 sons. The 2 sons got killed, but the father, and they were all in the same regiment. And the 2 sons got killed, but the father came back.
Oh.
So he must have felt bad. I mean, losing 2 boys.
not able to protect them.
No,
Well, I think that's it.
I think
That's
so.
the end. Thank you.